Welcome, Legionnaires, to the Long Live the Legion podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes comic book team and break subjects down so that whether you're just out of the Legion Academy or you're a longtime veteran, you get to know the team a little bit better. I'm your co-host, Jim.
And I'm your co-host, Jay.
And welcome to episode number 20. What do we have on the mission monitor board for today's episode, Jay? I see we have a guest in the wings here.
We do. So we have a very special guest on the mission monitor board. We are joined by Paul Kaminsky. If anybody doesn't know who Paul Kaminsky is, I think the best way is to get Paul to explain what he does and why we're talking to him.
Hi, Legionnaires. Hi, Jim and Jay. Nice. Thank you for having me. My name is Paul Kaminsky. I'm the group editor for the Metropolis group at DC Comics. So I oversee the Superman franchise, Flash, Green Lantern, World's Finest, Justice League, Aquaman. I'm doing the DC KO event right now. A lot of books are in my group. And I love Superman so much. I've been at DC now for about 10 years in editorial. Before that, I was at Archie Comics and made the transition over to superheroes, which I love. And what better superhero to transition to than Superman?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like the only Superman you're not editing is the absolute Superman.
Yeah, you know... Yeah, the one that makes all the money. Yeah, no, no, I'm very happy for that. In fact, we did a little horse trading between the core line and the absolute line at the start of that. Rafa Sandoval was working with me on House of Brainiac and had been doing. Rafa and I had been working together for years, actually. Yeah, they were looking for an artist, and he was able to sign on there. So I like to think that I contributed in some small way to the absolute line. But no, I'm core line through and through. So when you see a bright superhero flying somewhere, that is me. I'm one of the few editors at DC that has had tours of duty in all the different groups. So I have worked in Bat Group. I have worked in the former Justice League group. But yeah, no, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was put in charge of Superman, and I could not be happier.
That is awesome. I think I speak for Jay here as well. We are having a ball reading these books.
Thank you.
It's been a fun time at DC. In fact, I think we were just talking about this last episode that we recorded, how there's just, so much good stuff coming out, and it's a good time to be a DC fan.
I appreciate you saying that. We love what we do. We have a very good crew. It is a very healthy, creative atmosphere. I've been at DC long enough where I can say that is not necessarily always the case. So this is a wonderful time, not just to read DC Comics, but to work at DC.
So one of the things that we've talked a lot about on this podcast is the fact that an editor is a huge part of the collective comic book delivery creative team, right? You have the writer, you have the artist, obviously super, super important. But can you describe to the audience what an editor really brings to the table when we're talking about writing an individual issue, but also you're a group editor. So what does a group editor do versus just the individual editor of a particular title?
The editors are in charge of the immutables of the characters. It is our task to make sure the characters walk, talk, act like they should, given their context and history. So it is on us to know that history, where they came from, to be well-versed in that character's voice. So that is sort of the first thing out there. Superman wouldn't do this. Superman wouldn't do that kind of stuff. The second is we cast all the comics. So we're the ones hiring the writers and the artists, the colorists and letterers and everybody. And so an editor's vision is often in the casting. For example, when I had the good fortune to come back to the Superman group, we are at a point where we haven't had a Superman title in a little while. So this is a great time for a new number one. This is a great time for that. So I was able to kind of say, all right, well, what do I like about this franchise? And then cast the book accordingly. And that's how you get Josh and Jamal, because that was the approach I felt strongly about at the time. So we're allowed to put, our taste in there to a degree. Although really, I think part of an editor's job too is getting out of the way of the talent. And you have to kind of know when to step in and when to back off, which is tricky.
Absolutely. Tricky. And how does that intersect with the art from an editing perspective?
No, we're with the art every step of the way. And I had the advantage of having gone to art school, so I'm versed in it. And I'm also aware of how hard it is because I had tried to do it myself when I was in school, literally to have a degree. My degree is in cartooning. It's hilarious that you can spend that much money and have a little piece of paper that says cartooning on it. But we are with the art every step of the way as well, crafting covers, generating prompts, really everything along the way. We craft the story as well with the writer, and that involves the artist too, because when I'm working on a story, say next year we're working on our 2026 slate, there's some designs, hey, we need we need this character, we need that character. Who are we going to go to design it? What do those designs look like? We craft the character designs in that way. But we're also in charge of making sure that the story is told properly. And so on the page, you have to have a functional knowledge of storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I had I had the luck, rather, of having worked with a lot of really master storytellers. And I learned the ropes at a lot of different stages of comic development. Dan Jurgens is just a great person to study under. But like in college, my professor was Klaus Janson and Phil Jimenez and these people. So
wow,
I was able to have that education. So, look, it's a tough job and you kind of have to live it, right? It's not like a job you sort of turn off. It's a job you kind of have to, like, that becomes your life in a way. Friends and family would tell me it's important to establish boundaries.
Well, it sounds like as you're describing that process, it really sounds like the ultimate creative cat wrangling process.
Exactly. Yeah. There's an aspect of at times you feel like a director, at times you feel like a producer, at times you feel like a therapist, at times you feel like some manic accountant on April 13th or whatever. Like, this job feels like a lot of different things, but really you kind of embody the book. That's your book. You have to be P.T. Barnum. Like when I was a kid, I didn't know what an editor was, but I knew who Stan Lee was. Stan kind of really paved the way for a lot of that, for the idea of editorial being a little bit, I wouldn't say cult of personality, but like you do put a bit of yourself into it, right? Whether that's in just who you're choosing to hire or the kinds of stories you're looking to tell.
So let's go in and let's start talking about the Legion, because this is a Legion podcast, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Check me out on, I'm not sure about that.
Dying to.
Perfect. So we should just mention this just so that it's clear for everybody listening. You gave us a big list of all the books that you're editing. There will be one more book you'll be editing come next year. And that's why you're on this podcast, just so that everybody's clear on this, so we're not burying the lead. Now, we would love to ask you a bunch of questions about this book, but we know that you can't tell us anything, and nor would we expect you to. And so we're not going to try to tease the audience by saying, like, at the end, Paul's going to tell us. So that's not going to happen. What we really wanted to do today is just talk Legion for a bit. So I was listening to the interview that you did, or the interview you did on the Man of Steel podcast. And you're talking about your love of Superman and your love of comic books. And I noticed you weren't talking about the Legion, so I don't think it's a big leap for me to say that you've just gotten into the Legion, or you're just now reading a whole bunch of Legion stories.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I've been living and breathing comic books since I can remember. I think my first comic book was at 8 years old, and so since 1993, I have been obsessed with comics, and yet I don't think I had ever really sat down and read a Legion comic book in my life, because up until a short while ago, because from my vantage point, I grew up a Marvel zombie. And so, like, if there ever was an ultimate DC comic, it is Legion of Superheroes, right? Like, that is everything about Legion, at least for me, in my opinion. Legion of Superheroes represents everything about DC, which is sort of this, I forget who referred to it as, it might have been Dennis Camp. They refer to it as heightened reality or augmented reality, whereas Marvel tends to, in their mission statement, it was trying to make things feel more grounded, or like the superhero was outside your window. In DC Comics, it is a little bit more about the fantastical. Not to say Rainbow Bridges and Beta Ray Bill aren't fantastical, but you get my point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't know, something about Legion, I was just like, boy, I don't think I'm ever going to read that ding dang thing. Like, I had watched the cartoon, the Superman cartoon, and the Legion episode. It wasn't like I hated the Legion episode. It just never struck me.
Well, did you have that preconceived notion? A lot of people that I talk to and I say, you should try this book, you should give this a try, the first response is always, it's too big. There's too many characters. There's too much history. And I kind of have to say, look, if you read the X-Men, this is not as complicated and insane as that. So did you have any of that preconceived, or was it just like, look, there's just certain books that you just sometimes don't have time to read, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Honest to God, I don't know what it was, other than I might have had that preconceived notion about it being confusing, because I shouldn't say I never picked up a Legion comic, because what I love to do is, more than anything, well, almost anything, I love going through like quarter bins or dollar bins and finding old comics and just reading them front to back, house ads, editorial columns and all. I love that experience. I love feeling that paper. And so I remember there was a Paul Levitz, I don't know, must have been very late in that run, before 5 years later, that I had read, not too long after starting at DC. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I'll give this a go and stuff. And I couldn't follow anything. And I was just like, Unstar, what is happening? And I just couldn't, it just went right over me. And I was just like, whatever's happening in here is not for me. But I must say, because this is sounding an awful lot like I don't care for the Legion, which would be very surprising considering I'm on this podcast right now. About 8 months ago, when we started talking about a new Legion project, I was like, you know what? I'm going to read every Legion comic. I was like, I'm going to do it, everybody. I'm going to do it. And I am such a fan. I think I know exactly why this franchise struggles, I think. And I know why it shines, at least for me. And it really is just, it's an awesome, you talk about X-Men, like they are very akin, right? And so you do have to cross a barrier of entry, I feel like, to get to the other side. But it was just through this force of will and Josh Williamson egging me on that I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just like, so I have.
Well, thank you, Josh, for doing that for Paul. So to what you just said, what did you find that you liked the best, and what didn't you like, or what was your highs and lows?
Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to start with the thing that everybody tells me is the best. So I started with Levitz Giffen.
Yep. Great Darkness.
I started with the second, just before the Great Darkness, or maybe it was just after. I forget which one it was, but it was right around then. It was a recent collection, and as I was reading that, I was like, man, this is dense. Man, this is dense. Man, this, and then suddenly I'm like, man, I want to know what happens to Colossal Boy. And I was just like, oh, I get it. It took me a couple, but after that first Levitz Giffen set, I was like, I get this. I understand this. I love this, more importantly. Then I moved on to Great Darkness, and I've been hopping around ever since. I've been just driving Josh absolutely insane because I am reading so out of order, because I'm like, you know what? I just want to get to all the different things as fast as possible. So I went straight from 5 years later to Legion of Three Worlds.
Wow.
And I was like, who are all these people? My God. But that George Perez art.
Oh,
yeah. Something else. And then from there, I read the entire 5 years later Omnibus Volume 1. Woo! And I went, wow. But it's interesting actually going from era to era, because I suddenly see all these different creators and editors and writers and artists, them all grappling with the same stuff. Are the names too silly? How closely do we tie this to Superman? Like all these same things, that you kind of think about where with Legions maybe struggles, you see them all grapple with it in different ways. 5 years later was such a trip, because when I saw Keith stop including the names, I was like, oh, I understand why he did that. But counterpoint, now I don't know who anyone is. Because there's a rock and a block, and I found myself so confused. And so at that point, I gained an appreciation for the names once they were taken away. And so I wound up really appreciating what 5 years later represented. And it's really ahead of its time. In some ways, it's very much of its time. When you read it, it's a lot like American Flag or Judge Dredd or something. It is also way ahead of its time. Like, it has like a trans character in there. My jaw hit the floor. I was like, are you kidding me? What was this, 1991 or something? Whatever it was, 92, 93?
89 to 92.
Vaughn or whatever. Yeah, I was like, my God. So I really did respond to certain things about that. But that gave me an appreciation for the names. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just rambling now. All this Legion is pouring out of me because I've been reading this stuff. But then I read
rambling is good.
I read the Levitz return later that he did with Yildiray Cinar, and I really liked that one because it felt like sort of comfort food. It felt like very akin to the 80s stuff.
Sure, like the 2009 era type stuff.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I was texting. No. It was. I think it might have even been a little later. It was like 2011. It was like right before New 52.
Yeah. There's New 52 and the pre-New 52. Yeah.
Right. It was just like right with this weird sliver of time. And I was like texting Brian Cunningham, who edited that. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And he's like, right? Because like he got to like do Legion like he remembered it, like he loved it, And then I moved on to the Wade 3 boot. And that was interesting because, again, I saw Wade grappling with the names, and I saw the take on Chameleon Boy be pretty drastic. It was kind of I don't know how I felt. It just kind of washed over me, that one. And
I guess
now,
the 2005 one, I guess that was the 2005.
right,
Yeah.
the three boot. Yeah,
The yeah.
second one where he's just Chameleon and his eyes are the little dots.
Yeah, and the retractable antenna.
Sure. Who did it? Barry Kitson. The Barry Kitson one. And now the one I'm reading right now is the Wade's first go. Well, I guess the second after 5 years later, but
the reboot,
the one, the Archie Legion,
post 0 hour. Yeah.
Post 0 hour, so Wade calls them the Archie Legion because they all are a little sort of wholesome.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying that one actually a lot. In fact, I noticed a lot of similarity to what my take would have been. I think Mark and I had similar not to say I'm compare myself to Mark because no one can do that, but yeah. So it's been weird, man. I don't even know what the question was anymore. I'm just like, I've been reading all this stuff.
That was what you liked. So that's really cool because we all come on board at different eras. Like I came on board with that post 0 hour Legion that you're just talking about here, and then Jay, you came on board in the Bronze Age, right? So
I came on board just as Levitz and Giffen were taking over the book. So that was, yes, we're very old.
No, but you got the cream of the crop. You got the good stuff.
Exactly.
So I was reading it at the time when you had, like the Claremont, Byrne, Cockrum X-Men, you had the Wolfman, Perez Titans, and then you had the Levitz, Giffen, Legion. And I put all three of those in the same category. Like, to me, these are the three. I mean, if you want to go independent and talk about American Flag or John Sable or the other good stuff in the 80s, but for superhero teams, those were the peak. So I'm there as these stories are coming out, and I was probably just too young to realize how dense it was. I would have been like 11, 12 years old. So for me, it's just all of this stuff, and my brain's empty. So it's just filling up with all of this information. So I got to the point when I was a kid, and you'll get to this point if you keep reading Legion books, where you can read the interlac without really thinking about it. Like, you can actually just sit there and go, oh, that's this blah, blah, blah. Now that I'm slower and older, it takes me a couple of steps to do it. But when I was a kid, I could just and I could just read the whole thing. I'm just preparing you for your future as a Legion fan. This is the insanity that you get into, right?
There is a poetry to that, preparing me for the future. I appreciate that.
Exactly. So we are very positive, much like the Legion. We are very positive about the future on this podcast.
I know. And we started off mic we were talking about starships and Star Trek. I do find a lot of crossover there. And I was cracking up because I was like, boy, if Ronald D. Moore wasn't reading Legion, I will eat my own hat, because there's a Dominion War in this. There's literally a Dominion War, literally. And and I'm reading this going, guys. And I think it was a cycle, though, because when I was reading the Levitz Giffen stuff, I was going, man, this reads like TNG. But then I was looking at the dates. I was like, TNG wasn't out yet.
Right. Yeah, well, this is something we talk about quite often, where you get this main plot, then you get the B plot, then maybe even the C plot that are all weaving together. And then at the end, it all really works. I don't know how he was able to do that, but yeah.
It's through that. It's through that method. And in fact, that method is something that kicks around DC. They share it with all the editors when they come on, the Levitz method, the ABC plot. In fact, we just did that. When was that? Sometime in the spring, Scott and Josh talked with the editorial and actually walked everybody through, like, hey, here's what an ABC plot is. Here's how you do it. We'd had that before, but it's a good reminder that Levitz thing works. It works because it keeps the churn going of a monthly comic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the stories of him with multiple whiteboards in his office with every character name, and this is going here, because he realized one of the keys to the Legion, and you'll notice this, is you have your favorites, right? And as the book is going along, because there's 22 Legionnaires, is that you might not see your favorite an issue. And Levitz realized really early on, like, I can't have a person disappear for longer than a couple of issues, or we're going to start getting letters. Because I've said this about the Legion a lot. I may not like certain characters, but there's thousands of people out there who love them.
Right.
And I think the good writers are like, okay, let's make sure we get, I'm trying to think of a less, like a Duodamsel in the 70s was not a popular Legionnaire, but you've got to keep getting her in there because there's a group of fans who really like this character. I think I told Jim this story before. I was listening to a podcast with Devin Grayson, and she said the moment she got hired to take over a team book, the first person she talked to was Paul Levitz. And basically like, how do I do this? Because he kind of wrote the template. He wrote the book on how to write teams.
Yeah. So I bumped into him. I never worked under Paul. I started DC 10 years ago when it was, the Dan and Jim show. So everyone else had the Paul Levitz stories, but I didn't. So anyway, I bumped into him at San Diego this past year. And much like I just did with you guys right now, I was like, I just read all your Legions. I got But I was like, I want you to tell me everything. Like, tell me what you did here. Like, I want to know everything about it. So we actually had a call. He was really sweet. He took the call and we talked, and I was like, just tell me, like, what was it? How did you find that rhythm? And his answer surprised me because it's not something you would think for a franchise like Legion, but it makes perfect sense. And his thesis was, don't be afraid to break stuff and change stuff. You're in the future. The rules of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman don't apply. You can blow up planet Earth. You can kill a character and have them stay dead, like that kind of stuff. And he was just like, that was the advantage I had over Teen Titans and X-Men and stuff like that. Not that they didn't kill characters, but like he could do it, have there be actual consequences, and continue the story churn. And that was eye-opening for me because I wasn't expecting him to say that, but it's an ethos that I think is important for that franchise and explains quite a number of things. Because even in like, which is the one where they blew up, Levitz blew up Titan, I think.
No, he blew up the moon and Earth, actually. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, Giffen blew up the Earth.
Giffen blew up the Earth off panel, I think. This is like...
No, right on panel. It was a gigantic, like...
Yeah,
I do remember that, but it seemed while I was reading that, I was like, where'd that come from? There's there's not a lot of buildup, right? Like, it seems as though everything's resolved, and then the next issue, they're like, just kidding, the Earth blew up. And I'm like, what?
Well, there's tons of behind the scenes stories that I don't know. I can't verify all of them, but the rumor floating around was that by the time Giffen was done on 5 years later, he was so angry at everything and everybody that he was just like, I'm going to leave a smoking husk as I walk away from this title. Again, I cannot verify that 100%. I've heard a few stories. I've read a few things, but you're exactly right. It's funny when you mentioned Levitz saying, do whatever you want. One of the biggest shocks of Levitz's run on the volume 3 was when he kills Karate Kid. But ironically enough, killing Karate Kid turned Princess Projectra into a character who's 1,000 times more interesting. And it's a death that actually feeds the stories and makes the future stories better. So yeah, it is funny like how that freedom lets the writer do really interesting things.
Yeah, and you talk about similar thing with Claremont, right? Like, what's the biggest swing he could have taken? Like, disable the entire X-Men cast and bring on an entire new cast. Like, that was the biggest swing he could have taken, but he did it. And that's very much in that Legion spirit. Granted, it predates Legion by quite a bit, maybe not quite a bit. Maybe like a couple of years.
It actually doesn't at all.
Yeah. It was 75 when that happened.
Yeah, Legion's 58.
No, but Levitz.
Oh, sorry. You mean the Levitz stuff? Oh, sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
It predated Levitz. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But you're talking about that Claremont, Levitz, Wolfman kind of triad, right?
Yeah. Sorry, yes, you're right.
I think they might have been borrowing from each other in that space like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're checking out each other's works and it's pushing them to be better, right? I would think as an artist, every time I'm reading a George Perez page, I'm like, okay, what can I do to, or I give up and go, there's no way I can draw this. As someone who can barely draw stick figures, that would be my response to it.
Sure.
Yeah, you're right. Claremont kind of broke the rules. I mean, Thunderbird's death on his third issue on the X-Men. It's like that had not been done before. That stood out.
I think that was the first issue of the run in the book, like after Giant Size. It was like 94 or something. Yep. And so big swings like that.
Just to go back to the Star Trek parallel, if you ever get back into the early Bronze Age when Dave Cockrum and Mike Grell start drawing it, it's like very early on in their career. Did you not know this was coming?
All of it like Christmas morning.
Okay, perfect. There's tons of Star Trek references. And this is like 1973, 74. So it's OG Star Trek.
Yeah. You'll see the Legion cruiser and you'll be like, hey, I know what that is.
There's one I'm thinking of specifically. They end up in a ship graveyard where there's all these busted ships that have been abandoned. Right. And if you're a fan of 60s and 70s, early 70s sci-fi, you'll get a good kick out of what's been put in there. But the Legion's always been about like Easter eggs and all of this stuff, because I think the fans have just been used to like reading all the panels. Like when we were talking to Jeff Moy a little while ago, he's like, I loved throwing Easter eggs into all of the stuff he was doing in the reboot Legion. So there's tons of anime stuff and tons of just little bits in the background that they're having fun with. So I hope I didn't ruin your Christmas with this stuff.
No, not at all. I am continually delighted by the cast of creators that have worked on this franchise, because it is often people you just would not expect, like Francis Manapul. Like I have two Jim Shooter Francis Manapul trades next after the Archie Legion, and I'm dying to crack into those because I had no idea.
Just wait till you get to the Olivier Coipel.
Yeah,
I've heard about this. Yes,
it's his first North American work.
Yeah, you see an artist develop in real time, and it's kind of unbelievable to see it. So it's highly recommend reading that.
So I will. On that note, because we were going to ask this later, but this is the perfect time.
Please.
I don't know who you need to talk to in DC about collecting trades, but the fact that most of Coipel's work on the Legion hasn't been collected in a trade or an omnibus yet breaks my brain. Again, you don't have to say anything about that. I just wanted to make sure I remembered to mention that. So
I love hearing that. I will definitely pass that along. In fact, I am, the only word I can use to describe it is insufferable about suggesting trade collections about this stuff, because there's a couple that are not collected. I had to dig for the Wade stuff because all of that is out of print. But 5 years later, I was happy to see that come back in print. They got that second volume too.
The big one they've got to get is that Levitt's Volume 3. I don't think that's
Baxter
collected
stuff,
right now.
The Baxter edition.
I think that's out of print, right? Or unless there's announcements that I haven't heard.
No, I read the Volume 2, I think, is what that's where I started.
3.
The Volume 2. Yeah.
God, yes. The Volume 3 is where Karate Kid, it starts off with Karate Kid's death. And also the Grell and Cockrum stuff from the 70s is also not collected as well in anything.
I will flag that as well. These trades I'm reading don't even have covers in them. They were still when they were putting Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3 in them. So, that shows how far back that goes.
As long as we're still talking about trades, because you mentioned how you love reading with all of the ads, house ads and everything else. I know what you're going to say, but like I've heard dozens of people basically say, why can't we have the letters page? Or why can't we have and I know there's probably a bunch of legal issues with all of that, and there's a reason why they don't do it. But it's like, because I agree with you. Like whenever I go back and I'm rereading my Legion comics, if I can pull out one of my old floppies and you get that, they're advertising this movie or this, and you kind of get that taste of where in history it is. And the letters pages are always just fun to read.
I love that too. I don't know what the legalities are around that. We are working on resuscitating a letters column idea, because I used to do them when I was at Archie. We had the licensed comic. I did all the video game comics, and we had a very active letter page, and it was awesome because we'd get into like these play fights and stuff. We weren't really fighting, but we were sort of tit for tat with the fans, and it felt like that clubhouse kind of feeling, which is part of the appeal, I think, of comics just in general. Like it feels like a clubhouse. You go hang out. It's what I used to love about Wizard, right? Like Wizard was like, oh man, these are my people. Like I'm here and we're all talking with each other. So I really do want to engender that again, because online is just, I appreciate that that's the reality of our world, but it is such a pit sometimes that I would much rather we craft a positive space rather than have to find our way in a negative one or something. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does completely. It's really tough when you get onto certain spaces and you want to have friendly conversations, and all it takes is one post, and then you're suddenly like, I didn't realize that I was this horrible of a human being, and it's like, what? And all I said was that I didn't like Matter Eater Lad, and suddenly there's 30 people who want to kill me.
Can I tell you, I love that character so much. Matter Eater, because on his face, that's a silly name. But actually, that's a cool power. And like the way they use him sometimes is just so expertly done. I fell in love with that character. There are so many that if you had put a gun to my head and said, you will be a Wildfire fan, I would have been like, no, But yeah, dude, like he became like a favorite. These characters, they became a favorite so fast. And it's a combination, I think, of like the audacity of their powers, the audacity in some cases of the names and the bright colors. Like they are superheroes to the nth degree. Like there's no apology about it, nothing. Like, no, that's Matter Eater Lad. He'll eat your gun, like he'll eat your whole robot that you've got here. Like he'll eat everything. But there's some, like you could tell somebody like Hickman or somebody like that would really sink their teeth into it too, because like it's very much along those lines of like something that he would enjoy.
Yeah, and I think it gets to the heart of the Legion, where you take these characters who have silly names and silly powers, but yet they're saving the day. And everybody treats them as equals. I will own up to this. I mentioned Matter Eater Lad, kind of semi-joking and semi-not. I never got his popularity for the longest time. I would just sit there and I'd be like, I don't get this. And I finally had a conversation online with somebody who's like, this is why he's cool. And I went back and I reread everything and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this now. I understand why somebody would like him. And I think it's a lot of their characters. Like you think of like Shrinking Violet could just be she gets short, done and done, disappears. Her character is one note. And as Jim will tell you, that is his favorite, hey. Right? And because they've done so much with her, they've written her so well that you get a good sense of this character. And I think it's that perfect sign, I think, for especially in comic books, when the writer respects the character, and any character can be written well. Like you can take anybody. And you think of some of the other concepts in other stories and you go, guy puts on blue tights, flies around, can't really get beaten by anybody. And yet how many movies, how many TV shows, because he's been handled so well and because there's such a great idea behind it. The fact that they had an argument about his red shorts,
and do we put the yellow diamond on the back of the shield on the back of the cape?
That's right.
Yeah.
I never used to like the shield on the back of the cape, and then I became like fixated on it. Now if I don't see it back there, I'm like, look, I agree. And that's whenever it frustrates me that sometimes with Legion, that barrier for entry can lead people to dismiss what are otherwise great characters and great stories for the reasons you say. And I count myself among them as a younger person, not anymore, but I don't know. I just, so part of my want for this franchise, right, is like, I want to break down those barriers of entry, and how can we make this feel as accessible as possible is kind of like the mission statement upon us revisiting the franchise to begin with. So what we have in the books right now, we have the Darkseid Legion, which is, hey, that is a Legion from the absolute universe. Instead of being inspired by Superman or Valor, if you're a 5 years later head, I guess, but instead of being inspired by a hero, they're inspired by the ultimate evil. Like he's not just a villain, like he is just the embodiment of evil. He's like a hurricane. And so that's an interesting concept. And so that's something that we've been playing out in the books right now. And it's been working. People have been responding to it. In fact, the Superman 28 and 29 sold out. We had to go back to press on it, and those are Legion of Darkseid issues. So that bodes really well. We felt really good about that. Doesn't hurt that Dan Mora designed them and drew them, but yeah.
We're going to ask that. So Dan was who actually created the designs for the Darkseid Legion?
So Josh had many thoughts, but yes, Dan designed all of them. So that spread you see in the All-In special, that's where he did the designing, basically. So there was not like turnaround sheets as such, partly because there's so many characters. But Josh had very specific ideas of what he wanted there, and Dan collaborated on those ideas and executed them on the page. So that's all Dan, basically. Well, I mean, it's all Dan with Josh's initial guidance.
Well, one of the things that leapt out to us, so a year ago when we saw that splash page, a lot of us were just like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Right? Because it's obviously the Legion, but it's obviously not the Legion, right? That we're all used to. And the other thing that jumped out was, like you said, the cool designs, but also you have the core Legionnaires that I think we all know and we could pretty much identify, but we saw a couple others in there, like Kid Quantum 2 is in there, who is one of the reboot Legionnaires, right? So I don't know how plugged into Josh's brain you are, but
pretty plugged. We're pretty plugged.
But I mean, does this mean that there are Legionnaires for all of the different realities out there?
So
in the Legion of Darkseid?
So what I will say is Josh is a huge fan. He came in during the 3 boot, the Wade Legion.
Okay.
So when you ask him, what's your Legion? He'll say Mark's Legion.
Okay.
But he loves all the other stuff too. And he loves, like, Legion of 3 Worlds is his other big favorite. That's why I started That's why I moved that up the queue. I would have read the Wade stuff earlier if it was in print, but I'll get it in print. I swear I'll get it in print.
That's right.
But anyway, so he does love all the different casts. And so that is him, I think, giving a nod to all the different characters. Sure. As far as like, are all those different realities all represented within the Absolute Universe? I'm not sure that I'm going to have an answer that is going to satisfy nerd brain stuff on that one. But what I will say is, like, if the Absolute Universe is the embodiment of evil run, or, you know, darkness run amok, I should say, darkness run amok, everything in the Absolute Universe bends toward Darkseid. Everything is a little bit more jacked up, a little grittier, a little cranked to 11, then it makes sense that you would have a myriad of Legion characters that would reflect that.
One of the things that jumped out to us, you know, in the actual Legion of Darkseid story was that as far as the, you know, I guess that Legion of Four Worlds that had collected as part of that battle, that you had legions from these other realities, kind of like literally there, folks that you haven't seen for a long, long time were actually in some of those frames, which was really cool because, you know, Kinetics is also one of my favorite characters from the reboot.
Josh loves Kinetics, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, if you put a good forward with Josh, have her be in the new book, and if he likes beer or whiskey or whatever, I'm happy to.
All right.
Give him something, and you know, it's not a bribe. I'm not bribing anybody here.
We would never.
You don't have to bribe the willing, I guess. Like, why buy? why buy the cow when you're getting Chameleon Boy for free?
Exactly, yes. Exactly. Yeah. Which is another really awesome design, by the way. The evil chameleon, the chameleon was so good.
Never looked that cool. Like I love Chameleon Boy, but old Reap has never quite looked that cool before. I was like, wow, nice.
Yeah. The other thing that I was curious about, we've seen that big splash page in the All-In Special, and then we've seen the main Trinity show up here and there. And then, of course, in the Legion of Darkseid, we see another big chunk of people. But my other question was going to be, where do we start seeing all these other characters starting to show up? And we're seeing them dripped here and there in all these other stories, which is kind of cool. I just read not the current release of Justice League Unlimited, but last month's, where you see Element Lad and Projectra, right? But the evil versions of them. And I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. Or Shadow Last from the Justice League Dark Special that was out there. You know, they're popping up here and there. And so I'm hoping we're going to get more of that over the next couple of months.
Yeah, so the Darkseid Legion is going to persist through KO, and you're going to see a lot of that in the Superman book. And they are basically the stormtroopers or whatever. Like, they're the infantry for Darkseid. I guess not infantry, but because the parademons are that. They are the principal, like, we're doing stuff villains of this event. So you are going to see a lot of them, particularly in Superman, especially. There will be, like, you saw the actual Legion proper as well. You saw that sort of, the future, like, actual Legion, and it looked pretty bleak. And that is going to play into what our eventual sort of jumping off point for a new Legion series is going to tie into that. So for fans who are looking for the start of what will be the next Legion story, you'll see that pretty clearly in Superman 28, 29, 30, which are all out now. And you'll see that story continue throughout the rest of Superman and DCKO.
How long did it take you all to plan all this stuff? Because this is a lot. There's a lot going on here, man.
We never stop. I mean, it's just all right. Cards on the table. I'm just gonna lay it all out for you guys. I'm gonna not sugarcoat this. I was completely in the dark on Legion stuff until very beginning of this year. Josh, that was all Josh. The Darkseid Legion, all Josh. And he and I have been working together for a long time, and we have a very good relationship, and there's mutual trust. And when he tells me this is cool, trust me, this is cool, people will like this, I believe him. You know, I trust him because we share that. So that was one of those moments. And then when he said, but listen, the next project I want to do a Legion thing. Like, I really want to do a Legion. Like, that's on my bucket list, because we had been talking to him about some other titles in the coming years and stuff. And Josh, like me, has kind of just been around at DC and touched a lot of these titles already. Like, Josh has written Batman, not on a run level, but like he wrote Shadow War and stuff like that. He's written a lot. And so it came to this point where he was like, listen, the big thing on my bucket list is Legion. So I thought, well, if he's going to do that, then I'm going to have to learn about these guys. And that's what set me down the path. And and then I just have become insufferable about it. Yeah.
I guess Mark had some input in this as well, right? Mark Waid. Or was it all Josh?
He's been, no. Well, Mark has been, oh man, I don't even know how to describe his role.
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah, you know what? That's actually the perfect way to put it. Yes. Obi-Wan Kenobi. No, Mark Waid is, I always say, when he puts his fingers on the keyboard, the DC universe spills out. There's not a DC thing I don't run by him. I'm like, does this track for you? Like, and if it doesn't, tell me. And he will. And I appreciate that about him. You know, he really will say it. So Mark has been getting an earful from Josh. And then I make sure to tell Mark after I read any Legion run, I'm like, I just unload on him over text message. So anyway, to answer your question, Josh kicked us into gear for All In, but actually the Legion project itself really started this year. And I've been really enjoying it.
Awesome. Love hearing that.
I was going to say, it must be for you kind of like finding like almost like a lost treasure. Like here's something you didn't know about. And is there anything that you've been reading that you really want to talk about that we haven't asked you about yet? As you're going through all these books, if you've got Josh and Mark, I mean, obviously they're the experts, but is there something that you've been dying to like, oh, there's da-da-da-da-da, and we haven't approached that yet?
Well, I love the cartoon. Let me say this. I love the cartoon. I was told by somebody that they didn't care for it, so I wasn't sure what to expect when I flipped it on. And I've been watching it all with my kids, and we all love it. I love it. Awesome. I think it's great. The animations is sort of funny to me because it's like a part of, it's like Bruce Timm, like adjacent or something, like
of its time, kind of in some ways. Yeah,
a little of its time, sure, but and not that in a bad way or anything. Like that, but I just it took me by surprise. I was expecting very much like Justice League Unlimited or something. But I really love that cartoon, and that helped distill some things for me too with the cast, because it showed me what they perceived it as. It also changed my opinion on like Lightning Lad, because when I was talking to, I don't know if you guys know Alex Segura, he wrote Star Wars for Marvel. He and I know each other a long time. He's a Legion obsessive. And when I was first getting into it, he's like, oh, all you need to know about Legion is Lightning Lad is Cyclops and Saturn Girl's Jean Grey, and and this. And then I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, yeah, I see the Cyclops in the Levitt stuff, but almost every other iteration of Garth, he's not like, I don't know, he's different. He's almost like, he's more like Havoc, actually. He's more like, I don't know, he's kind of angry or smart alecky. It's different than Cyclops. And the cartoon helped crystallize that for me a little bit, seeing how he was approached there. And then going back and reading the Archie Legion, I was like, oh, he's kind of a little arrogant here too and stuff. So I guess that, I don't know, what did you guys think about the cartoon?
So we've done one episode on the first season so far. We need to go back because I think the second season is better, especially around Garth specifically, right?
I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still in first season.
I think the second season, there are some of the best episodes ever. Okay. I think in that series, especially around Garth, Ayla, and Mech, the brother. So highly.
I love Timberwolf. The Timberwolf episode. I love how they treat him in the show. I like his design. I love that I became a big Timberwolf fan through the cartoon, but also like I read some of that 90s series.
Oh, the Timberwolf series?
It's a little of its time, certainly, but I don't know. I was like, oh, okay, I guess they were going for this Wolverine thing there. But I thought Wildfire was more of a Wolverine analog for me.
Yeah, it was the only thing that the Timberwolf series was missing was lots of pouches.
I love it. I can't wait.
So, and this is back to the Legion of Darkseid. I wanted to make sure that we asked you this question because this is something I've been seeing a lot on fan boards, and also it was kind of the opinion that I initially had the first time I read the Legion of Darkseid book, where you have, like we talked about, the devastation of the Legion. What do you say to people who are critical about the story because it kind of nerfs the actual real Legion, or the Legion of Four Worlds as it is presented?
I would say be patient if possible, or at the very least know that the people who are doing this are doing it with a love and respect for that fandom first. So however much people feel they love those characters, the creative teams that are working on this right now feel that as well. So I know it's hard sometimes to communicate this on the page, especially when you don't agree with a creative choice that has been made. But I would say wait and see where we're going with it. Yeah, because the idea is that this is going to end in a nice place.
Yeah,
at least I think so. Anyway, but
well, New Legion book is a nice place.
Sure, yeah, but I don't want to do it just to do it either. Like that's been the biggest thing too. It's like, well, what the hell is the approach here? And so I know actually exactly what I would want to see. The thing I don't know, not to change the subject too much, but the thing I key in on with that franchise is that these are kids play acting superheroes, much in the same way kids now play act like pirates or Vikings or something. Like there is a real historical thing that they're almost play acting. And so in a way, there's elements of like Kick-Ass in this a bit, where they're kids kind of in over their heads emulating a style of archetype, rather, that is 1,000 years in the past. And so when I think about the path inward, to me, that's maybe how you make it sort of much in the same way that Superboy Prime is popping on the page right now because he's a comic book fan inside of a comic book. He's becoming sort of relatable. So that is one approach. And I was expecting someone else to kind of take that approach, and I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it does exist. Maybe it exists somewhere in the many, many iterations of this franchise. But I was relieved to see that has not happened yet, because I think that for me would be the strength of where to approach the cast from here. That doesn't answer your question at all, but that's what I said.
Well, it gives us these teases so we can wait for, unfortunately, it's going to be hard to wait until next year.
Yeah, until whichever month it is. And we know you can't even tell us that. So we're just going to say, but it is.
We're assuming it's not going to be the March that was published on that slide at Comic-Con.
No, definitely.
So,
not March, but yes, it is extremely top of mind. Yes. We'll have more details on it.
Perfect. And then one of the other questions, I keep on saying War of the Legion. So I'm getting that name from the Flashpoint Beyond issue from like 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, one of those later John's issues. Is that what we're seeing, what we were seeing in the Legion of Darkseid? Do you know if that's where Josh was going with that?
Probably. You're talking about when they get to that, what that future is specifically?
Yeah. Because there's this little, on Batman's little chalkboard, he has that written there. And that was, years ago. So nobody understood what that was.
Josh would remember.
Nobody in DC did either. So
wasn't 5G also on that chalkboard?
Yeah, I think so too. So
I know
who the hell knows?
I know the chalkboard. I am well versed in the chalkboard. Josh reads everything. And Josh is always trying to make sure that he is never disrespecting or leaving another version of it, even if he didn't like it behind, which is he and I we feel very strongly about. As an X-Men fan, I've read some pretty hinky eras of that title. Sure. And the last thing I want is for someone to tell me that what I did by reading those didn't matter. You can downplay it. I would rather you forge ahead. I would rather you try new stuff. But it's like heavy retcons, memory holes, stuff like that always gets under my skins. That, and Josh feels the same way, I think. Not to put words in his mouth, but he has that streak in him as well.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, sometimes when the creative team can make, I don't want to say the bad decision, but the stories that are maybe less well received, if they can make them work without retconning them, sometimes I think that's even better. And then you're kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, this story did happen. It's kind of funny. One of the episodes we did was taking a look at what a lot of people consider one of the worst stories in Legion history, which I don't think you read the Reflecto saga out of all the trades, because that was when I got into comics. It's one of my sentimental favorites, but yet they would still pull parts from that and still make reference to it because like this happened, whether we love it or not. We've got to embrace it. And I think that's part of the history.
I mentioned Hickman earlier. That's what I appreciated so much about the Krakoa era, because he had everything there. And it was clear that even if he wasn't reading X-Men all his life or didn't even, love the franchise, right? Like whatever the case is, he clearly did the homework and it was on the page. And all I need is for somebody to tell me what you read matters. And it's okay. Like that's kind of, to me, that's how I feel about it as a fan reading, Like same thing with Star Trek stuff. It's like, that's why I love Lower Decks so much, because it leans in and celebrates even stuff that's sort of silly.
Yeah.
It'll lean in and celebrate it because it's all really silly. When you get right down to it, it's all pretty silly stuff, right? Like we don't have to take it that seriously. We should take emotion seriously and like telling good stories seriously and all that stuff. But when you get, there is an element of like, we can have fun with this too,
Yeah. And sometimes when it's the silly, that is the one that you respond to the best, or the one that works, especially with a show that's super serious. Like, it's funny whenever we talk about Star Trek, and I know it's a silly episode when they all become Robin Hood and the Merry Men, and I still love that episode, and I love watching it, even though this episode really doesn't mean anything, and there's not really a point to it.
It's fun.
But it's these characters, sometimes you're just having the characters be around each other and kind of work off each other, and and we've got good writing and good acting, then it really works. And the other one I always go with as well is the story I love might be the story that somebody else hates, and vice versa. And think of me as the 12-year-old going, this was a great story. And then finding out later on, it was like, no, everybody hates this. And you're like, what? How am I wrong? What's going on here? So,
it's funny. You mentioned Ron D. Moore earlier in the beginning of the conversation. I remember when he was doing the Galactica revival.
Yeah.
25 years ago. Oh my God, I can't believe that.
I really wish you hadn't uttered those words, but go on.
I'm sorry. But I remember he made a really good comment, and he said it's all about the characters.
Yeah.
You get the characters right, and you have a good story around it, it's going to be great. People are going to love it. You know what I mean? So,
I do, and he's the master. Like, I don't know. I love Ronald D. Moore. I love his bottle episode thing. Like, yeah, dude, some like that. One of the best piece of sci-fi television, in my opinion, ever is that one where they can't find water.
Yeah,
like was that episode 3 or something? But like,
early on,
it was very early. But look, that's a very practical concern, and puts you right there. It makes it relatable immediately. There's real stakes because they might not get the water they need. Some of that ship might die. That's actually going back to Levitt's thing. I think that's why some of that stuff works so well, because he put stakes on it. There are real stakes here. Yeah. One of the things that is a bugaboo for me as an editor, and writers I work with hear about it, is when the stakes don't feel attainable. I hate it when, hate's a strong word. I find it a little soft when a story is like, and I'm going to destroy the world. Because unless you're Keith Giffen in 1994, you're not going to blow up the world. Like, we're not doing that. We know that. We know we're not doing that. I'm going to kill Superman. Unless you're Doomsday in 1994 once again. I guess 1994 was really the year of that. But it's like, are we going to do that? Probably not. So I would love it if there are stakes like that feel like they could actually happen, in story, not like physically, like scientifically happen, but like in the story.
Okay, well, let's start wrapping it in here. But before we let you go, whenever we have a guest on, we like to do our lightning lad round, where we shoot a couple of questions at you, and you get to tell people what you like about certain odd things. So here we go. You ready?
I'm full of odd things I enjoy. So yeah, great, good.
All right. So what are you listening to right now? Podcast, music, whatever.
Yeah, I love. I'm a bit of a Swiftie, so I'm enjoying the Showgirl album. Okay. It's more my speed than the Poets one, I think. So I quite like that. I'm also listening to a lot of Ravi Shankar at the moment, Indian classical, and this band called Splinter from the mid 70s, this sort of funny little soft 70s rock band. So I've got that's what I'm listening to there. And podcasts, I listen to, of course, Men of Steel.
Of course.
Also a plug for the fantastic Digging for Kryptonite podcast hosted by Anthony Desiato. I listen to that one a lot. Anthony, if you're a Superman fan, give Anthony's show a shot. You'll love it.
We will put that in the show notes.
All right.
Okay. So what are you reading, watching from a TV perspective or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm reading the McCartney Years, Volume 2, which covers 1974 through 1980, which is a Paul McCartney biography. I'm also, I just finished Roaming by Mariko Tamaki, and that is an amazing graphic novel. I'm reading a lot these days, so I'm going to rattle off just another one really quickly. I read this, my very first Star Trek novel. I've never read a Star Trek novel before. Titan by Adventure of the Titan by Jeffrey Thorne, called The Sword of Achilles? I forget what it's called. Sword of Damocles. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Sword of Damocles, which is about the Titan. I'm reading a lot. And I'm watching a lot of Nova Science Now, and a wonderful show on PBS called Space Time, which is a man talking about gravity and things at you for a while.
Oh, neato. Okay. And last question, what's your favorite food?
Proper New York pizza, I guess.
Nice. now I'm really hungry. Probably hard to get out your way.
They don't have it here, certainly.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist, but I think that makes the memory of it stronger.
That much better. Absolutely.
Yes. Right.
All right. So Paul, where can folks get a hold of you, talk to you, or hear from you?
Through the books. I do a letter Well, I don't do. I do an editorial column every month. So in all the Superman books, you can hear from me there. Welcome to Metropolis spread and all the Superman issues. You can mainly find me in the pages of DC Comics, where I live in a sort of a strange timeshare situation. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, man. This has been a great discussion. It's great when we have folks that have so many common interests, which I think, it's comic books. So there's a lot of commonality there between Star Trek and Legion and Superman and all that good stuff.
I felt right at home right here.
Well, you're welcome
Thanks,
anytime
guys.
you want to show up.
Yes.
I would love to. This has been a blast. I love it. I love Legion so much. I just want people to know, like, hey, I don't know if, it's hard to say with any guarantee we're going to do exactly the thing you want with this franchise. But what I will tell you is the people who are working on it love it and want to do right by it. So at the very least, I can promise you that no one is phoning this one in. Like we're treating this with respect.
Okay. So Jay, where can we find you out there on the internet?
So if you want to find my weekly column where I'm reviewing Legion comics, I actually just finished Legion of Three Worlds just a little while ago, and I think we had the same take on George Perez art being amazing. That is at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. You can find me on Reddit and on Discord as Drake Burrows, and you can find me on Blue Sky at jmckiernan, bluesky.net.com. Sorry.
Social.
Jim, where can they find you?
All right. Well, I have my Legion Reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com, where I try to post one comic a week that's somehow Legion related. I'm epically failing, but I am going to be working on my Legion timeline for the reboot. So look for an update on that here pretty soon. You can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social, on Reddit at jimbofett87, and on the Legion Discord as Jimbo Fett. So if you want to follow the podcast or get access to the Legion Discord, we are at longlivethelegion.bsky.social, or send us an email and tell us what you think at longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com. And until next time, long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion, so say we all.
So say we all.
So say we all.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.